to Tennessee's At Home Learning Series for Literacy. Today's lesson is for all our third graders out there, though everyone is welcome to tune in. This lesson is the third in this week's series. My name is Miss Copeland, and I'm a third grade teacher at Venus Stewart Elementary in Gallatin, Tennessee. I'm so excited to be your teacher for this lesson. Welcome to my virtual classroom. And every day I'm sharing a note to one of my kids in my actual classroom who I am missing very much right now. Today's letter is for Fernando. Fernando, I sure do miss seeing you each and every day in our class. I miss seeing you always put forth your best effort and trying your best. I also miss hearing your stories that you tell, and I hope I get to see you soon. If you didn't see our previous lesson, you can find it on www.tn.gov. You can still tune in to today's lesson if you haven't seen any of the others, but it might be more fun if you go back and watch our other lessons, since today we'll be talking about things that we've learned previously. Today, we will be learning about how people react and respond to main events. Before we get started, to participate fully in our lesson today, you will need 2 sheets of paper, a pencil, and a surface to write on, and if possible, the student packet for ELA Grade 3, Lesson 8, which can be found on the tn.gov website. Okay, let's begin. In our previous lesson from the historical fiction text, Rocket Girl, we focused on vocabulary and idioms. Idioms is a funny word, isn't it? To help remember, an idiom is a phrase that makes language more interesting. And an author uses idioms in a way that has a meaning other than its normal meaning. Let's go back to one example. I heard Jenny say that she was going to keep her eyes peeled. What? Peel her eyes? No way. That is an idiom that we use to say that we are going to watch closely. So when she says she's going to keep her eyes peeled, she means she's going to be watching closely. Today, our goal is to read a portion of the memoir, Rise to the Challenge, focus on vocabulary words, build knowledge about main events, and learn how people feel and act in response to those events. We will begin with me supporting you to understand the text, and then there will be time for you to practice on your own with my support. Finally, I will assign you independent work that you can complete after the video ends. You heard me use the word memoir. Let's understand the features of a memoir in order to use text structure to support your comprehension. Please take out a sheet of paper and make notes as we read. First, write a note to remind you of what a memoir is. A memoir is a narrative nonfiction text that tells about the author's real-life experience. They may tell about events the author witnessed. They may share things the author saw, did, thought, or felt. Narrative nonfiction texts sometimes have a conflict or problem and a solution. They may include photographs, captions, illustrations, and graphics to communicate information. A memoir is written in the first person. First person means the main character is talking directly to you, the reader. So in a memoir, the author is talking to you and will use words like I did this, me, my. It focuses on a short period of time or several related events in a person's life. It relates events as the author remembers them. It includes thoughts and feelings that explain why those particular events are important to the author. Its ending is often intended to get the reader thinking. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures and captions from our text. Take a moment to look at these pictures and think about these questions. What do you think are the photos? Why do you think there are photos and captions, but no illustrations? Why do you think some of the photos are in black and white and some are in color? Way to go! I heard you say correctly that there are not illustrations because this is a nonfiction story, and the pictures show us the real image. You also correctly said that most pictures from many years ago were in black and white. Color pictures were not available in the beginning of the story. This also helps us understand this memoir takes place over many years. It's time to jump into our memoir of this young woman. From the table of contents, I can see we are going to start with part 1, preparation. I wonder what the preparation is for. Let's start reading the text. As I read the first paragraph, I want you to think about why this astronaut would refer to a space shuttle as a patient. Part 1, preparation. Number 1, figure out what is wrong with the patient. Number 2, decide which medical tools to use. Number 3, take action. As a young doctor working in emergency rooms across the South, I learned to perform these 3 steps within seconds. To save my patients' lives, I had to stay calm and think fast. But on April 13, 1985, I found myself in a new situation. I was aboard the space shuttle Discovery, 25,000 miles from home. My patient was a huge broken machine. My tools were whatever items I could patch together with tape. I had finally reached my goal of becoming a doctor and an astronaut. But was I ready to deal with an emergency in space? Let's pause and think for a moment. Why did the author and astronaut Ray Seddon call the shuttle a patient? One wouldn't normally call a space shuttle a patient, would they? Good for you. This young lady was a doctor, and her job was to save patients' lives. When she became an astronaut and had to save the shuttle, as a good writer, she associated the shuttle with her patients. Good thinking here. While we are talking about the shuttle, let's make sure we know what the shuttle is referring to. That the shuttle is referring to the topic of space and astronauts. Take a moment and tell me what a shuttle is. How do you know? Correct. I heard you say that a shuttle is a piece of equipment used in space travel. Let's write the definition of shuttle. Grab your paper. A shuttle is a piece of equipment used in space travel. You did an excellent job explaining that. The author gave us clues to what a shuttle is and does from the text. First, Dr. Seddon was aboard the shuttle far away from home and in space. She told us it was a machine and she needed tools to fix it. If you weren't totally sure what a shuttle was, you could have used a picture of the space shuttle to make sure your definition was correct. Let's keep reading the text. The odds of me going into space were quite slim. I was one of 6,000 people who applied to join NASA in 1977. For the first time, both men and women were being considered for jobs as astronauts. However, only 35 of us would make the cut. During my childhood in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, I had imagined becoming a doctor on a space station. At age 30, I had earned my medical degree. I was halfway there. Now, there was a chance, however small, to make the rest of my dream come true. Let's think together for a moment. Do you remember our first chapter was about preparing for something? Based on the text, what was the doctor preparing for? Correct. As a young girl, she had a dream to be a doctor on the space station. Because she already was a doctor, she had achieved half of her goal. Her preparation was to now work on getting a job on the space station. As I read the next part, think about how Dr. Seddon responded to the offer to work for NASA, the government space program. I got the phone call early in the morning on January 16, 1978. NASA's head of flight operations offered me the job. Do you still want to join us? Of course I did. I found out that 29 men and 6 women had been chosen. I would be Tennessee's first female astronaut. What an honor and what a challenge. Let's think. How did Dr. Seddon respond to her job offer? Why do you think she said it was an honor and a challenge? Right on track. Dr. Seddon responded to the job offer with excitement because we see this was the second half of her dream. When she said she would be Tennessee's first female astronaut and only 6 women chosen to prepare for spaceflight, you knew it was an honor because she was chosen over many other people. And she could represent women that wanted to do jobs done mostly by men. She knew this was a challenge because her preparation and job would not be easy. Thank you for thinking through that answer. Let's keep reading. Before I would be allowed to soar above Earth, I had to graduate from a 2-year training program. We trained at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Each day, my brain was packed with as much information as it could hold. In one class, I had a lesson from Neil Armstrong, the first person to walk on the moon. Before we move on to the next section, let's look at these pictures and captions that go along with them. One caption says, "Here are the first 6 female astronauts. I am the second from the left, the short blonde one." The other caption on page 5 says, "An astronaut in training getting the feel of weightlessness." And the caption at the bottom of page 5 says, "On break during training in 1978. Let's read more of our memoir. My muscles were tested too. I was taught how to fly a small jet and use a parachute. I did scuba training in a giant pool as practice for a possible spacewalk. At 5 feet 2 inches, I was the shortest of my NASA classmates. Most of NASA's materials weren't designed for someone my size. In earlier years, all astronauts had to be at least 5'6". These orange suits that astronauts wear during launch and landing weigh nearly 80 pounds. Walking in my suit was almost like carrying around another person. Yet no matter how sore or tired I became, I never once thought of complaining. I wanted to prove that women and smaller people could become great astronauts. Each day of training brought me closer to a space voyage." Think with me for a moment. She told us she never thought of complaining. With being so tired and exhausted and having sore muscles, why didn't she even think of complaining? This young woman, doctor and astronaut, was finally achieving her dream, and she wanted to prove that women and smaller people could become great astronauts. Is that what you were thinking too? If so, you did a tremendous job using textual evidence. She realized not many women had this opportunity, and she wanted to do her best. Let's look at this picture. The caption says, "The crew of my first space flight." Dr. Seddon told us the training brought her closer to a space voyage. What is a voyage? Let's add voyage to our notes. Write the word voyage. Someone said they noticed the word spaceflight in the caption. Dividing the word space flight into 2 words, space and flight, helps us understand the word. A flight to space is a very long trip. A space voyage is a very long trip. Write down that definition. A voyage is a very long trip. Let's continue reading. The hard work paid off quickly. NASA decided to end our training after only 1 year. I wanted to climb aboard a space shuttle right away, but it would be nearly 6 more years before my first trip. In the meantime, I was given projects that would help other astronauts. Some of the projects drew on my background as a doctor. For example, I helped design medical kits that would be flown on shuttles. Other work involved things that were completely new to me. I spent months testing the computers that fly space shuttles and learning how science experiments are prepared for flight. I also worked with a team trying to improve astronauts' meals. We heard about the many parts of Dr. Seddon's training, and we will hear more about how she continued to prepare and help the team get ready for spaceflight. Look at the picture and caption on page 8. The caption to this picture says astronaut food. Let's read this page. Many foods taken into space are powdery and dry, like the food you might take on a camping trip. At mealtime, astronauts add water to food. My task was to help find which foods would be healthy, tasty, and easy to prepare in space. We learned that strawberries worked well as space food. Asparagus wasn't bad either, but you had to put the right amount of water in it. Who wants to eat crunchy, dry asparagus? Before my first space trip, I married my NASA classmate, Robert Hoot Gibson. Hoot and I had our first son, Paul, in 1982. The next year, my classmate, Sally Ride, became the first American woman in space. I was very proud of Sally, who had become a good friend. I was excited too because I knew my turn would come soon. In the picture on page 9, I see Hoot Gibson, and I also see a label that shows me who Sally Ride is. Let's think together about what we've read. We read that Dr. Seddon married one of her classmates, and one of her classmates was the first American woman to be sent into space. How did our Tennessee astronaut respond to her classmate being the first woman to go into space? Let me reread those sentences to you. I was very proud of Sally, who had become a good friend. I was excited too because I knew my turn would soon come. So, how did Dr. Seddon respond to her friend being chosen for this flight? Right, she was proud of her friend. What does this tell us about her character? This young doctor and astronaut was not jealous of her friend for being chosen first. You got it right, excellent. In fact, she knew she would have a turn, so she was excited and proud of her friend, Sally Ride. When a person can celebrate accomplishments of her friend, it shows that that person is mature and confident in her abilities. She had no reason to be jealous of the other woman. This may be one reason that she was chosen for the job at NASA. Thank you for engaging in the text with me. Let's put the key details together to make sure we keep them in mind. Today, we will only be adding the first 2 details. Save this sheet and join us for the next lesson as we add on to our key details chart. Go ahead and take out your paper and your pencil. Ready to go? Make this chart on your paper like mine. The title of the chart is Key Details Chart. We are going to write the key details or main events in chronological order. That means the order in which they happened. As we write the key details of our story, we will use time order words like then, next, lastly, or first. These words help us with the sequence or order of the events. Make sure to use these vocabulary words. Make sure to use the words shuttle and voyage as you write. The first detail in our story is about Dr. Ray Seddon preparing to be an astronaut. Could you write a sentence about that on your chart? You did it! The first major detail is Ray Seddon got her medical degree when she was 30 years old. She was preparing for her dream to be a doctor on the space shuttle. Good job using the vocabulary word shuttle correctly. Go ahead and write the second detail from this section of our text where our Tennessee astronaut gets that special call and works toward her dream. This was an exciting part of the text where Dr. Seddon gives her all to make her dream come true. You may have answered something like this. Then, in 1978, she was offered a job as an astronaut for NASA. First, she had to go to training school to prepare to be an astronaut and take a voyage into space. Excellent use of the time order words then and first. They are helpful for the audience to understand the order of the events. And great job including the vocabulary word voyage. Now we have come to the independent section of this lesson. You will be asked to complete this assignment after we finish together today. Please get out your second sheet of paper. I will give you the prompt. You may want to write down the directions at the top of your paper. Using your key details chart, write a summary of the main events in our story about Dr. Ray Seddon. Remember, a summary uses a few sentences to briefly describe the main points about something. Please add the vocabulary words shuttle and voyage as you write. Also, add how our memoir author responded to the main events. Thank you. Good writers and readers use key details to understand the text and make connections between ideas. I enjoyed working on understanding this real hero, Dr. Ray Seddon, and how she responded to major events with you today. We will continue our story in the next lesson. Thank you for inviting me into your home. I look forward to seeing you in our next lesson in Tennessee's At Home Learning Series. Goodbye.
Rosie, let's read a book before you take a nap, okay? Which book do you want to read? This one? Oh, this one, huh? Okay. It's one of my favorites. Okay, let's start reading it here.
No, Daddy.
What's wrong with it?
It's upside down.
Oh, it's upside down. How do you know that?
Because it's that way.
Because the words and the pictures are upside down, aren't they? Okay, let's start reading it from right here.
No.
Well, why can't I read it from here?
Because it's at the beginning.
It's not the beginning. It's in the middle. You're right. We know from the beginning of the book, we look at the cover of the book, and then we turn the page from there. Very good. Okay, let's really get started. Here we go. Hello, my name is Emily Elizabeth, and this is my big red...
No.
What? What's wrong with that?
It's different.
Oh, it's not the right book? Okay, let me try it again. This is a story about a little monkey and a man in a big yellow hat.
No, Daddy.
How do you know that that's not the right words?
Because it's another title.
It is another title. You're really good, Rosie. You're a good reader, and you know, good readers know how books work, and they know when things make sense. Good job.
Hello, I'm Maria Lee, First Lady of Tennessee, and I'm so glad you're here. This has been an unprecedented time for our state and our country. I'm so proud to see how Tennesseans are coming together to serve and lift each other up in the midst of challenges. Each of us has a role to play, including you, our students. Right now, your school buildings may be closed, but there are many opportunities to keep learning. And we are so grateful for the partnership of PBS in bringing this program directly to you as one more way to keep us learning and growing together during this time. I want to also give a special thank you to all of the teachers who helped make this possible. We could not do it without them. Most of all, thank you for joining us.
Hello, my most amazing artist. Today we're going to be creating something called an abstract work of art. An abstract work of art is a work of art that when you look at it, the focus is not necessarily on what the artist was trying to create realistically. Oh, no. It's something that is abstract, meaning that it involves mostly lines, shapes, and color. Those are just a few of the elements of art. The elements of art are the magical ingredients that all artists, including you, use to create their works of art. Why don't we go ahead and learn what those are before we talk about creating? The elements of art are line, shape, color, baby, color, form, value, texture, and space. When an artist is creating an abstract work of art, they might make a work of art that simply is, like my dress almost, lines, shapes, and color. That kind of abstract artwork is called non-objective. We don't see or recognize any of the objects in it. A work of art that's called objective is an abstract piece where you might be able to see a couple of things that look familiar to you, but for the most part, it doesn't look realistic. We are going to be trying our hand at our very own masterpiece, an abstract masterpiece using lines and shapes. We'll be taking some of our favorite words, some happy, positive things that are rolling around in our heads right now to create our abstract masterpiece. We'll also be adding some color. I'm going to share with you how to turn your markers into paint. So let's get started. To begin, decide on whether or not you want your paper to go vertically or horizontally. That's up to you. And then take a marker and outline the paper. I'm just creating a border or a frame. I'm also using a permanent marker, and that's really important. You'll want to do this step with a permanent marker. Next step, break up the paper with 2 wavy, curvy, straight, zigzag, any kind of line that you wish to use. And I made my lines a little bit thicker by coloring them in. Now let's think of some positive words. Words that make you feel good inside. I'm going with a word like happy. As I write the letters of my word, notice that the top of my letter touches the top of my line. The bottom of my letter stretches all the way down to the bottom of the line. You can even go back and make the letters a little bit thicker by coloring them in so they stand out or contrast a little bit more. But it's important that you stretch that letter from the top of the line all the way to the bottom. Now, here's a really cool trick to paint with markers. I'm using what's called a washable marker. Most markers are washable, and I'm outlining the inside shapes of my letter. Now, to turn your markers into a paint, just add water. The permanent marker is going to stay put. It's permanent. However, the water-based marker that you used will turn into a paint and make for a beautiful abstract masterpiece.